thank you for all joining me here today in my home office in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm thrilled to be joined by my good friend Danette, who's going to talk to you with me about really service and our overall collective path to service excellence. So by way of introduction, I'm Sean Myers. I run product marketing for our CX service and other solutions. And a little known fact about me is that I started, one of my very first jobs out of college was actually helping to manage a call center. So cool thing, I had a great experience there. I learned a lot about people management, about the management of operations. So a lot of great foundation for me. So Danette, maybe before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your background in service?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. My name is Danette Beal, and I'm a senior product manager with Oracle CX Service, and our team specializes in strategy. And just like you, I started my career in customer service, and I've been helping some of the largest companies in the world design their service strategies. And a little bit about myself, I would consider myself a service aficionado. I'm almost like a sommelier of wine, but for service. I really love to immerse myself in it and just understand and learn as much about customer service as possible.
That's a really fun comparison, and I actually like it. So now what you're telling me is I have to come to you with all of my sort of service situation to wine pairings. So I'll look into that. So, speaking of Jeff and Chris, I love the content they talked us, that sort of literal stroll through a ton of interesting, topics and issues and conversations. I thought that was very exciting. And, Rob as well, I think set up our day today with just some really great things, and including his really top 3 priorities about, really how as service professionals, we really have to think about how every customer service interaction really must matter. We just have to think beyond only service. Really, our customers have experiences with our brands across many areas. And so we need to think of that. And really the importance of service is, one of the key foundational elements of how brands build long-term customer loyalty. So, Danette, I think everyone in the audience today is a consumer as well as a service professional, right? So I think, we know as consumers, we value our relationships being personalized and, relevant to our time, to our place, and the ways we want. So, what is your thoughts today, Danette, about really customer expectations and really, in the vein of a service interaction and what that should look like?
Yeah, Sean, it comes down to that we're all customers and we all have expectations of the brands that we work with every single day. For instance, I'm an introvert by nature and I'm also a mom. I think the thought of picking up a phone and actually talking to somebody just makes me a little nauseous inside. Like, chat is the channel of choice for me, and it's the one that works the best. And that makes it really hard for companies as they start to design a strategy, because they have to find something that fits everybody. And what makes it even more difficult is when a customer engages with a company, we see them as different departments like marketing and commerce and service. But to them, it's just one engagement. There's no marketing experience or commerce experience when they're shopping. So this all directly impacts customer service and how a customer views a company.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point, right? It's all about that, that how do we expect those engagements to work? And I'm sure most of the members of our audience are nodding their heads right now. But, I think there's the challenge right under that, which is how do we start to get better? How do we get to where we can have those consistency of interactions and the sort of the level of personalization and relevancy that we'd all want from those interactions. So before we really dive into the content today, I'd love to really get to know our audience a little more, right? So we'd love to do that with a poll. And this first poll is really about you kind of looking in to yourself and your operations and saying, what is, that sort of main thing? What's that key thing that's standing in your way from delivering what you would think of as a world-class customer service experience? And I'm sure if you look across these, there's several options and opportunities between, lack of data, the skill set of your agents, maybe, budget. We all have limits to our budget. Or even, maybe you have issues with some of the technologies, or maybe it's something else. And, likely it's a little bit here, a little bit there. But if you had to pick one, right? If you had to sort of say, what's the thing that if I could solve tomorrow, wave my magic wand, I could move forward more efficiently, what would you say? Well, that's an interesting result. And I think it's certainly something not surprising to see. So, I think that's what most people are challenged with. Again, as I mentioned, a little bit of all of these things. And so it can be kind of hard to understand, well, what do I go tackle first and next, et cetera. And so that's where we came in, right? Oracle has partnered with hundreds and hundreds of service leaders and really tried to help the collective, environment and the all of us who are focused on service issues really come up with a framework, right? A framework of helping us understand where each of us as service leaders are in our progress towards building these world-class experiences, and really broken that down into 4 stages, right? And so, each of these stages has different aspects to it when you're thinking of different business challenges, different opportunities you might have. And really the goal is to, figure out where you might be in your own operations and then how to get to that next level. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about this first level. This is one that we call inbound service. Now, inbound is, again, the beginning, the sort of the foundational layer, the starting point. And so really at this level, you're doing your best to just sort of react, right? You're just trying to keep up with all of the volume of service requests. Those service requests are probably at this stage coming in through one primary channel. Maybe it's phone, perhaps it's email. And so really this is sort of where, the basics start. And so Danette, now if you think of this stage, this inbound service, what do you think about as a service leader, and as so you're managing your day-to-day?
Yeah, there's still companies out there that have an inbound service strategy as their main strategy, but to be completely honest with you, that's becoming fewer and farther between. Even the companies such as the DMV or the telecommunications companies out there that weren't necessarily known for good service are seeing the value in driving and delivering exceptional service. Where we're seeing it mostly is that companies start to revert back to inbound service during emergency situations. We actually saw that quite a bit with the pandemic. I mean, I had a personal experience where I was trying to change some airline flights and I was in the middle of chatting because, again, that's my channel of choice. And they shut the chat off mid chatting with somebody and directed me over to phone, which was then a 6-hour queue just to get back in line with somebody. So again, when I'm talking to customers and companies about what those first steps should be, I would say if you find yourself in inbound, you need to start investing in self-service. A knowledge base that's a dynamic knowledge base, not just static FAQs, can help you be nimble and move very swiftly when you don't have a lot of resources to be able to support real-time engagements.
Yeah, I love that point, and sort of nimble in the right way, right? Because I think I had a similar experience to you with, I don't like the phone, I will admit it. And, I wanted to engage over chat and they turned it off. And so that for me is really a frustrating experience, right? And that's really what creates dissatisfaction. And for I think service professionals at this level, that's probably one of the main motivating factors to try and do better. They understand the limitations are really creating, negative value, if you will, for their customers. And so that's why you'd want to go do something and really make a change. And that's where you'd sort of think of how do you push forward to that next level? That next level we've really referred to as foundational. This is foundational service where, think of it as you've got the foundation laid, right? You have those understanding of the customer problems, your ability to really react and respond to them over that sort of main primary channel, all ticked and tied. That you've got done. So now you shift focus, right? You can think about, well, how can I add new channels of engagement, right? How can I maybe improve the efficiencies of my team? You might be focused on metrics like agent turnover and, time to resolution. These are the things that probably occupy your mind during the day. And, Danette, actually, this one to me, as I look across the model, I sort of, this is where I cringe. I think of myself in that, way back many years ago as being sort of the foundational person around, dealing with issues like agent turnover and what that was doing to not just my cost structure, but even the experience of, the customers I was trying to support and even the agents themselves. So, if you were talking to me back in the day, Danette, what would you tell me?
Yeah, I would say most companies find themselves squarely within the foundational service strategy. And honestly, a lot of companies have great success in that strategy, in foundational. They see a good balance between their channels and their self-service, and they're able to get moving with their goals. But what we find from service professionals who are successful in this area is that they really focus on analytics. They understand the impacts of their business, they understand how their channels are reacting, and they're able to experiment just slightly to see if they can get better gains in efficiency, say maybe average handle time is something that they care about. So we recently just worked with a company who was experiencing something just like you talked about. They had 100% turnover, agent turnover year over year. And honestly, that sounds probably pretty scary, but I think a lot of companies out there are focusing with this same problem. But because they understood their business and they knew their analytics, they were able to experiment, and they actually decided to move to a work from home strategy. Now, we're all used to work from home now, but this was way before everything that's going on. And it was kind of a taboo thing to even talk about. But what they found is that by allowing their agents to work from home, they were able to get a bigger pool of agents to pull from. And they found people who were actually passionate about selling their products. And so as an example, they not only had better experience for their agents, but they have a better experience for their customers. And they were able to reduce that agent turnover and save costs at the same time.
Wow, it's amazing, and I think it's so interesting to see how, you know, work from home is a great example of what's just radically changed in the service industry. And so, you know, going on from there, I think that's a great story, and it really, I could see how it leads this into the next level, right? And so, you know, we call the next level advanced service, and this is where, you know, as a service leader, you probably sort of think, hey, I got this. I've got my arms around my team. I've got my arms around my processes, my capabilities. And so now you think, okay, what's next, right? You know, you might be shifting towards thinking of how service shifts from being just a thing you've got to have in place to react to something where it's maybe more of a strategic capability of your company, right? So maybe how can you operationalize all those efficiencies and really make continuously better and better? And, you know, maybe you're thinking about things like, you know, customer satisfaction metrics and other ways of measuring your own success. And so, you know, the data is all a big piece of this, right? So you're probably very focused on building that deepest, richest picture of your customer engagements and how they're working. And, you know, it's possible at this stage even that you might be starting to share those insights that you generate in your own service context with other parts of the organization so that they can benefit. And so I think this is you know, I'm a big data nerd. So this is kind of an exciting stage when we just keep adding on to the data we have as service leaders. And so, you know, Danette, you've seen a lot of folks get to this level. And what do you think they're thinking about? What are they trying to improve upon? What's your opinion on what's, you know, the right thing to be doing once you're getting to these sort of the better stages and this sort of excitement of what we can do next?
Yeah, Sean. So this is where you talk about being a data nerd. I'm a data nerd as well, but I'm a bigger service nerd. And this is where the magic really starts to happen with service and where I get really excited. You know, as companies start to move from foundational to advanced service, they start to realize that prioritizing service and their customers will help them achieve their bigger goals, their organizational goals. But they still have to be aware of cost in inundating their contact centers. So it's really important to them to be able to do that in a way that is safe. And digital automation is actually something that we found has helped companies move into this advanced level, but has not overwhelmed them. So we have a company that we work with, an organization called Turning Point that provides social services to over 300 locations in the UK. And my husband is a social worker. Sean, I can tell you when it actually matters, when service actually matters, these people are changing lives. You know, we talk about service, but these are the ones that it's life or death situations sometimes. And Turning Point, again, is using Oracle service to provide life-changing changes for their citizens. And so they use Intelligent Advisor for scheduling. And this, again, is something where they've been able to reduce down to from 4 weeks down to 2 days the time to get a patient in to their services. And this is life, again, critical. And they're also using digital assistant in a very interesting way. If, say, a patient has an anxiety attack, they can text with Turning Point and they actually talk to the digital assistant, and that digital assistant can give them relaxation techniques or just get them through that moment before they can actually go and see somebody live in person. So again, automated channels is allowing Turning Point as well as other organizations personalized service without restraining their resources. And this is really important at this level. So another area that can really help is connected service. And Sean, if it's okay with you, I would love to tell just a personal story of my own. You know, we're all going through this thing right now, this pandemic. And back in March, my poor son just wanted to go and do something. So we said, you know what, let's go camping. That meant camping in his room. But within 5 minutes of setting up the tent, my 11-year-old actually ended up breaking the tent pole. So I had to make a decision. Was I going to replace this pole and look at this face for the next however long? Or was I going to go and actually purchase a new tent? Now, obviously, with the situation going on, I wasn't too jazzed about going out in person and finding a tent. So I decided to replace the pole. And I started to engage with this company online. And immediately I was super excited. I turned to my husband and I said, this is going to be one of the best engagements that I've ever had with a company. And it was the way that Nick talked to me, the agent. He said, oh, dang, did yours fail on you? Now, Sean, how many times have you talked to your bank and they speak to you like that? Probably never, because it's not appropriate. But for a outdoor enthusiast company, it was absolutely appropriate. And this is why I'm so excited, because customers are really starting to look at authenticity as something that they really want to focus on. Customers value authenticity, and companies are picking up on that. And that's exactly what this company was doing. So as we kind of move forward this, I knew that it was going to be special, and they did not let me down. So as we continued chatting into this experience, I was immediately taken back and let down by this company who said, this tent pole, we can't replace it, but we have a great warranty. And I was like, oh, great. I don't remember when I bought this tent. It was maybe 11 years ago. I had no clue where I bought it from. But I want you to pay attention to the timestamp that's on that text message of 10:44, because within 1 minute of asking me my email, he was not only able to find my receipt, but he knew exactly where I bought that from. So the end story to this is that he packaged everything up for me. He sent me the information that I needed. I took a picture of the tent pole, and within 2 weeks during a pandemic, we were able to get this tent pole replaced because of this warranty process. Now, again, they were able to do this because of that connected data. He had immediate access to the information that he needed, even though it was outside of service. And as we move forward, I didn't want to just stop there. I actually wanted to engage with this company and tell them how much I appreciated them. And so I reached out to their VP on social media, and I said, hey, I just want to talk to you about how great this experience was. Were you actually working from home? And he said, yes, we've been working from home during this pandemic. And again, it just shows you when you prioritize service and you put everything and all those pieces into place, you can achieve big things and continue that service experience for your customers.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I particularly love the payoff of the story.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of it, we were able to get the tent working and running, and they were happy kids.
Well, I think we're going to have to do a camping adventure in my household too. I love that story. So, I think as we keep going, we reach the sort of the top of this stack, right? What we call beyond service stage. And I think, to me, this really starts to reach into a lot of the themes, obviously, we've been talking about, but even what Rob sort of introduced in the day here, right? So this is where, as a service leader, you're thinking now again about, things beyond even service, right? Because we as consumers don't necessarily give a darn about the organizational structure of the brands we're engaging with. We don't think, oh, okay, this is the marketing department. Oh, now it's the service department. Oh, maybe it's the sales or the commerce. We just think of engaging with the brand, right? So, I think this is the stage that if you have the opportunity to get here and do it really well, this is where we can really see a big shift. And we can talk about things like building truly long-term customer loyalty. And, not just to retain your customers, actually be known for a great brand that interacts well, and use that as a means of attracting new customers to your brand as well. So, Danette, you're lucky to work with a lot of service leaders out there. And so, are there any, sort of favorite customers, good stories you could tell us about, folks who are really getting it to this stage and how it's really impacting their business?
Yeah, we have a lot of companies that are in this area and starting to merge, but Payoneer is one of the companies that we're working with right now, or that we're starting to work with. And they are a borderless payment platform company for a borderless world. They operate in over 200 companies in 150 different currencies with 70 different languages. So you can imagine where everything can go wrong, Payoneer is doing everything right. They're processing over 5,000 inquiries a day globally. And the way that they're doing that and still delivering exceptional service is they found out a way to be regional and to be able to be super localized with the customers that they have, but still do it over a broad scale globally. And they do that by using digital automation with smart routing. So they make sure that they have the right agent who's authentic to the right customer, that's speaking the right language at the right time. So again, this is a great way of showing like all of those steps that we've talked about, from inbound all the way up to advanced, and having the right channels available and the right self-service experience. This company is actually able to automate over 72% of their requests just handled through automated replies.
Hmm.
And that again allows their agents to be really authentic and have those genuine conversations and work on those harder incidents with their customers. So this is a great example of how a company can go from inbound to beyond and be extremely successful for their customers.
Yeah, that's such a good story. And it's fun. I mean, it's funny. You think back to the tent, right? This is your finances. You can't say, dang, it broke. And now you have to figure out what is the equivalent of dang, it broke around all of the regions of the world with their, not just languages, but sort of cultural context as well. So, I mean, that's just amazing. And something I am really, really impressed with. So, as we begin to wrap up our session here today, I think I'd like to just kind of take a moment to remind the folks in the audience that this stuff is complicated, and it is complex, and it is challenging as you fight through all your day-to-day priorities to figure out, really what to do next, right? And frankly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Every individual out there running every different service department, every person that's participating in trying to make service better for customers out there in the world is going to have their own set of unique challenges. And so, we built this framework just as a tool to help, right? A tool to really help you think about, maybe assess your current capabilities, understand where you might want to focus on next, or, what you're striving to be at the next level. So, before we get to the end here, again, I'm love learning about our audience. And so let's learn a little bit more. And so I would challenge you all to think about that framework, right? Think about, as these ideas are laid out, how do you feel that you yourself are placed? Do you think you're really early in this maturity, that you're sort of inbound or maybe foundational like I was back in the day? Do you think you've got some great stuff going? Maybe you're more in advance, or do you think of that, service is not just a strategic capability but for you, but for your entire organization? And we're talking about, as Rob mentioned, the consistencies of all of the interactions being there for you, so that top level of beyond. Well, and thank you for that input. I think it's not really shocking. It is something we're all striving to be better at, and that's why we built this model and this tool. And so, I think that as a next step for you all, I'd certainly welcome you to reach out to us over this email address. If you have any questions about this content, if you'd like to talk more, if you'd like us to sit down with you and really walk through your own maturity and really how we can help you frame up a rough plan for what to do next, and really how you can keep advancing towards that ultimate goal of really that beyond service. So with that, Danette, I'd really thank you for your time today. It's been great seeing you online again. Thank you all in the audience for spending the time with us today. It's really, I hope personally this session's been helpful and useful and giving you some good things to take away and think about.